Now you notice that I typed in file space star or file space asterisk in that last example. The asterisk is what I call an example of a wildcard character. So what is a wildcard and what do we use them for? Well, when we're using the shell, and in fact many other types of programs, it is possible to specify that we want to perform an action on a group of files. In the previous example, I said file space asterisk, meaning that I actually wanted to perform my file type analysis on a group of files. Which group? Well, all the files in that particular directory. The asterisk was a wildcard that I used for that purpose. And the wildcard characters that we have available are the following. The asterisk, which matches any characters or any collection of characters in a file name. Let me show you what I'm talking about. As an example, star.txt or mark.star or a star b. Let me show you examples of those in use. Here we are back at my prompt, and I type in ls. Now what if I wanted to say, show me all the files that have a T in them? This is how I might do it. ls star T star. And what that will do when I run it, it will show me the list of all the names where the name has a T in the name somewhere. Let's have a look. And there they are, another .txt. User.list. Notice the T can be at the end. It's probably a little bit of a confusing example. Let's try a simpler one. ls b star. Find me all the files that start with a B. In other words, find me all the file names that have a B at the beginning and then anything. The wildcard is used to represent the term anything. So B anything. And how many are there? Well, there's just one. In fact, I could just type ls space star, which lists me every single thing in this directory. Now, is that any different to just ls with no options whatsoever? Yes, it is different. ls with no options does that. It lists me the 6 files and directories in this directory. ls space star is like performing an ls operation on each of the files and directories in this directory. How is that different? Let's have a look. Well, it's done an ls on the 5 files in this directory, and it's also done an ls on the 1 subdirectory, subdir1, which is in this directory as well. So the contents of subdir1 also get listed. I'll change into another directory and give you some more examples. Here I am in the public HTML trip directory again. Let's try ls, and I'm going to use the -c option to put them in columns, star.html. And then I get all the HTML files, and only the HTML files. Or I could say ls jj star. Find me everything that begins with JJ. Windows and DOS both use the asterisk character in the same way, but it's slightly different in Unix. Only slightly, but it is different. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We've already seen that it's possible to use the asterisk anywhere in a file name. There's another difference. What would this do in Windows? ls star dot star. And the answer is it would list you everything in the directory, everything in the folder. Well, let's have a look at what everything in the folder is first by using ls. Well, let's try it again using ls -c. Okay, that's everything in the folder. Now let's try ls again with the -c option, star dot star. Now, if you're a Windows person, you'd expect to see everything. Let's try that. Now that's certainly not as much things as we had before. Notice that we don't have set1 anymore, and we don't have fp class. Why not? Can you see what's going on? What does star.star list us? Well, it actually lists everything that has a dot in it. So the output of the ls command is only the files whose names have a dot in them. If I wanted to list absolutely everything, then I'd do this, -c star, but that would list not just the files in this directory, but it will also list all the files in all the subdirectories, and there's a great deal of them. I'll do it anyway. As you can see, it's a big list. What I really would want to do is ls -c and then use another option, -d of star, and that the -d option means if you encounter a directory, don't list the contents of the directory, only list the directory itself. So that gives me, again, exactly what I would have got if I'd just done an ls-c. The star means match everything. What other characters do we have available? Well, there's the question mark, which is a little bit different to the asterisk. It doesn't match any bunch of characters, it matches any one character, and exactly one character. An example would be C question mark T. C question mark T means match, for example, CAT, CIT, C underscore T, C3T, CCT, and so on. Fred dot question mark question mark question mark question mark means match any file name that is the word Fred followed by a full stop followed by exactly 4 characters, and any 4 characters. And the third example there, 4 question marks followed by an X followed by a question mark, means match any 6-letter file name where an X is the second last character. The other characters can be anything you like. I won't show you any examples of those because they're fairly straightforward. Experiment with those yourself if you like. Finally, there's the square brackets. Square brackets mean match any single character that appears within the brackets, and it's a single character. Everything inside the brackets is interpreted as matching a single character. Let me show you some examples. C, and then in brackets AOU, close brackets T. Now, that matches any 3-letter file name. If they exist, they may not exist, but if there was a file name CAT, that would match. If there was a file called COT, that would match, and CUT would also match, and nothing else would match. Note that it would not match CAUT or CAOUT. It has to be a single letter, one of the 3 letters inside the brackets. Now, the second example, brackets A-Z, and then capital A-Z, star.txt. That basically means match any file that ends in a .txt that begins with a letter. In other words, you can't have files that begin with a number, or files that begin with some punctuation character or something. Let's see a brief example of that. Here I am in the course directory again. Now I'll just do an ls, those are the files. Now if I did an ls of A to Z star, that means match basically any file name that begins with A to Z. But notice that it has not matched second-bin file, because that began with a 2, which is not one of the A to Z letters, so that didn't get listed. Or I could say ls A dash Z star and then A dash Z. That means match any file or directory that begins with a letter and ends with a letter. And there's only 4 of those, because subdir1 ends with a 1. Getting the idea? There is a special case. The third example on the end there is the exclamation mark D. Now, exclamation mark means not D. So how you read that is you say, I want to match any file, in this particular example, match any file that does not begin with a D. So only Ds are excluded, and it'll list everything else. Let me show you. I'll do an ls again, 6 things. Now I'll do an ls of not S star. So anything that does not begin with an S. When I press enter, I get, well, those 4 files. I don't get sample.html, and I don't get subdir1 because they begin with an S, of course. Now, I want you to understand that I have been using ls as an example here. But the techniques I've shown you and the wildcards I've shown you will work with absolutely any program. We're going to see another 50 or so programs throughout the remainder of this course, and these wildcard techniques will work with every single one of them. Well, every single one of them that uses files, and file names, that is. This is a technique for expanding or matching file names. For example, at some stage we're going to learn about the text editor called Vi. And all these wildcard characters will be used when we start Vi on the shell command line. We can start it using wildcard characters. We might, for example, say Vi space star.txt if we want to edit all the .txt files in the current directory. That's just an example. I just don't want you to think that these wildcard characters are just somehow tied to ls and ls only. Now here's a little quiz for you. What does the following match? This is a real example. This might look very contrived, but I actually found myself doing this quite a lot in my programming career. What does that do? You might want to pause the video at this point and write it down or type it into your shell and see if you can figure out what it does. I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. Did you figure it out? Well, let's start at the end. It will match file names that end in a full stop followed by a single character, which is either C or an H. So it's all files that end in .c or all files that end in .h. What about the beginning? Well, it can start with any character at all, but the second character must not be a dot. And that's pretty much it. So it's all files that either end in a .c or end in a .h, where the second character is not a full stop. Did you get it? Interesting.